Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Sammie Griffin, and I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date is September 1st, 1989, and it's through people like you and a sponsor who loved me enough until I could learn to love you and a God of my understanding. I have a home group, and it's the Keystone group. It's in Richmond, Virginia. It's on Sunday night at 5 o'clock. I heard a speaker say a long time ago, and I love to say this: if you don't like your home group, don't come to mine and ruin mine, you know. And Andy mentioned earlier that there's no wandering. Well, I'm in trouble because I'm a wandering Jew. So thanks, Andy. I won't wander too much. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you all for setting this up. And my family is here, and I'll get into that. But my family is here, which makes me cry, because y'all are my family, and you'll hear that in my short story. Because I'm really up here to talk about the 8 and 9, but you do need to hear why I had to make some of those 8 and 9s. It's kind of important. So I was born a long time ago, 1951, to a nice Jewish family. I was the youngest of 6, and the only thing I can remember is fear. Fear ruled my life. I've heard all the speakers talk about, always, just how much that was on them when they were a kid. I never knew I was an alcoholic until I got to you people. I didn't know. I just thought I was insane. And the big book tells me that you're probably right, you are. And to a large extent. So growing up was hard for me. Not that because I didn't have everything I ever needed and wanted. It wasn't hard for me, not because I wasn't loved. My whole life I've had a trouble of receiving love and actually giving love. All my life, I wanted to love and be loved. That's really what I wanted all my life. I didn't really know that. But I knew it growing up, that I wanted to be loved so bad by my sisters and brothers and my mom and dad, that I would have done anything for it. So I became like schizophrenic in a way. I wanted my sisters to, approve of me, this one, that one. All my sisters and brothers are all today doctors and lawyers. We're Jewish. That's what they do. But I was the only kid growing up that didn't have any ambition. None. I still don't really, I have a purpose today, but I wasn't an ambitious person like my sisters and brothers. So I thought there was something really wrong with me. I felt very inadequate growing up. I barely made it out of school, so I wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer. I'm not an intelligent person. I don't think deeply. I'm pretty even. I look at stuff, and that's just the way I am. And that's what I want to share with you today also, because most of the speakers are very intelligent, aren't they? They could come up here, bam, that was really good. And, I used to envy that. That was on my resentment list too. And they intimidated me, which was on my resentment list too. If you were tall, blonde, skinny, I really hated you. So growing up, all my sisters and brothers, at the age of 15, I took my first drink. And it's interesting, I heard Chris say that we need to use the word anxiety, And years ago, like in the 30s and 40s, they used the word neurotic. And today they don't use the word neurotic, they use anxiety. And it's interesting that he talked about that, because I had a lot of anxieties of not being what I thought I should be because of what you were. So everything was on the outside. So being a fearful kid, at the age of 15, I took my first drink. And the drink did for me what I could not do for myself. Because I don't have this God thing. I'm brought up in a Jewish home. I went to temple. I went to Hebrew school. I did all those things, and I can tell you how many windows are in the temple. Because I went there and I counted them all. But for some reason I did feel good when I did go, which I went all the time. But something in here could not comprehend, or I was never open. You know, I was just shut off. So I barely made it through school, guys. You know, I started drinking at 15, so nothing really exciting happened to me, but I drank alcoholically from the beginning. And at the age of 15 also, my mom sent me to a diet doctor. You know, in the 60s, they were real popular, and I was the only fat kid in the family. You know, my sisters and brothers looked like Jewish refugees that just got off a boat. And so I get sent to this diet doctor, and I get these things called amphetamines. And so I'm now drinking and doing these things alcoholically. 15, I'm off and running. You know, and I don't even know. All I know is I'm a sneak. Being a Jew, we were told that, you know, there's no alcoholism in Judaism. Jews are not alcoholic. So I'm in this, you know, Jewish community, and I'm the only one really drinking, you know, the way I want to drink. So what I would do with my friends, of course, like we all do, is I drink before I go out with my friends. You know, and let me tell you what the drink did for me. It made me be able to talk to you. I could finally look somebody in the eye. You know, it really did give me courage, and it really did give me what I needed. Alcohol worked for me. It really did. All right, so I'm going to tell you a quick synopsis of my story. So I am a tornado at the age of 15. Now, I drank for 23 years. You know how they have on the tombstone, you know, I'll have 1951 dash. I'm going to tell you about this dash that I'm in, because I should be at the end and dead. I really should be. So I am off and running. I'm not going to college. I'm not doing what my brothers and sisters are doing. I am a world traveler. You know, I'm going around the world because I keep getting kicked out of places. You know, at the age of 15, this is part of my amends. At the age of 23, I decided I needed to get married because all my sisters and brothers were married at the age of 21. That's what you did back then. And my life was getting out of control a lot. And I decided I needed to get some control in my life. I needed to be married. So I picked out this perfect specimen. I picked out a nice Jewish doctor. For a couple of reasons. One, my family, oh my God, she's gonna marry a doctor. It's gonna be great. And, because that's, gonna settle me down. I'm kind of thinking the same thing, But he also could write prescriptions. I'm not stupid, I'm an alcoholic. And he would be married to his profession, and I could still go do what I want. Because that is Sammie. Sammie's going to do, I'm so selfish and self-centered, but I don't know that because I think I'm a really nice person, and I'm a giver, and all that stuff. So in 1974, probably a lot of you weren't born yet, okay, my parents threw me a huge Jewish wedding. Just big. But that morning I got thirsty. I don't know why I got thirsty, but I needed a drink. So I called my friend and I said, hey, let's go have a drink. So that morning I go out, and that day, because, the sun goes down, it's a new day for Jews. So I had the whole day to do this. And I drank a fifth of vodka with her, and I took 4 Quaaludes. And I would have married anybody that was beside me. So, but here's, this part of men. So, but I was only married for 3 weeks. Oh, please. I got bored, I saw another guy go by and I wanted him. That's the kind of person I was. So what did I do to get out of that? Because I can lie well. I told my family how bad these things were about him. I told them lie after lie, and they were glad I got rid of them, and none of that was true. Just to let y'all know, I talked to him for like an hour on the way up here today. Amends. Okay, so that was just another day in the life of Sammie. And so I'm working up at NIH because I have a card to tell you who I am, because see, that card was important. My sisters and brothers were doctors and lawyers. They had a card, so I need to get a card. So I'm working in the hospital, and I am a histologist. Doesn't that sound great? I was a histologist. I had a card to tell you who I am. And so I'm working up at NIH at the time. Isn't that impressive? I was impressed. I hope you are. And so I got sick with a multiple sclerosis. And so this is a big part of my story, too. So I was lost my eyesight, put in a wheelchair. You know, it was horrible. But I turned to alcohol for my solution. Alcohol was never a problem. It was my solution. So they put me on disability. So now I'm really roaming around the country. I'm that wandering Jew. I'm going everywhere, you know, and because, you know, I'm not, and that disability check, I was never self-supporting through my own contributions. I got out of the wheelchair and I'm off and running. And so I end up in Tennessee. Strange state, guys. Well, I didn't understand their language. You know, it was English, but it was something else going on there. So I just said okay to everything, you know, like whatever y'all want. But I'm living in Tennessee, and I get a phone call from my mom, and my dad got sick. And my dad got sick, this was 40 years ago, from mesothelioma. Very popular today on TV, but it wasn't popular then. So he gets sick. He's only 60 years old. They send him down to MD Anderson, you know, because they have a protocol there. And while he's there, my mom's down there, you know, staying in the room with him, taking care of him, but she needed a break. So she called all her kids. You know, she's got 6 kids. One of them's going to help her. And so she calls them, and, you know, my sisters and brothers are married, working, children, and I'm everywhere. I'm not doing anything, so I volunteer. And I heard Sarah say this, I want to be that good daughter. I want to be a good sister. I just don't have the skills. You know, I don't have anything going on. So I go down there, send my mom back to Norfolk, and I go down there to take care of my dad. I go in that room, and, you know, I love my dad with all my heart and soul. And I think I actually felt like my dad loved me too, but I loved him. And he had been aphasic. You know, he had a stroke in the recovery room. So he couldn't really talk, and something happened. I get in his room, and I'm thirsty. You know, I don't know why I'm thirsty, but I need a drink. I don't know. You know, I'm feeling that dis-ease, but I don't know that I'm an alcoholic and that's what's happening to me. I don't know. But I just know I needed something, so I go out to have that one drink, and I look at my dad, and I go, I'll be right back, you know? You know the story. So I go out to have that one drink I see other people taking with impunity, because I need that ease and comfort, but I don't know that. And I go out to have that one drink, and I don't go back for 5 days. And I go back to my dad's room, and he, you know, and I'm feeling remorse, guilt, shame, everything, you know, after that spree, which is part of that spree. And he looks at me with that look like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be here helping me, and I don't know what to do. I'm going to grab a drink because I can't handle that. And then I don't go back for 2 more days. And then he gives me that, you know, and the nurse pulls me over, and they said, we're calling your family in because your dad's dying. And I'm like, oh my God. They can't call my family in. My family's going to see the condition I'm in. I'm only thinking about myself. And I don't know that. I don't know that I'm powerless. I don't know that. You know, so I leave in the middle of the night because I'm too afraid of my family. I'm fearful. I'm always fearful around them. So I leave my dad, and my dad died without me saying goodbye to him. That's alcoholism. Alcohol was making all my decisions for me. You heard it over and over and over through all these speakers. So I go back to the funeral back in Norfolk, and how do I show up to my dad's funeral? I show up drunk. And my sister comes up to me, and she spits on me. And she goes, we don't want you here. But I had this alcoholic attitude. You know the attitude I'm talking about? I had long hair. I probably flipped it, I can do whatever I want, All of a sudden I got this attitude going on. And so I stayed to help out my mom. On this journey, I ended up in Florida. I lived in every state that you can think of, besides this kind of state. But I lived in Bryn Mawr. I lived on the main line in Philly. I lived in New York. I've lived in Florida a couple of times. I lived in Tennessee. I was the type of alcoholic that I stirred up trouble. I was a troublemaker. I lied to you all the time. I'd go out with your husband. I would come live with you and steal from you. I was a tornado. It couldn't explain it any better. A tornado roaring through people's lives, uprooting relationships. The 12 and 12 says that we have this inability to form relationships with other people. Really? Really? It's the truth. So this is how I got to you people. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. That's where I live now. I got sober in Richmond. But I'm in Richmond because I had one sister left that I hadn't abused. I really abused my family. And so she had a first class restaurant dining. It was, first class. And so I'm working for her, and I destroyed the restaurant, and she lost it. So it's sometime in the 80s. I don't know. I don't know dates and everything. I can barely remember anything today. But so we separate, and she hates me. So I'm working at this other restaurant because I'm really in bad condition, guys, at this time. I'm in bad shape. And I'm drinking morning, noon, and night. I don't know if it's 6 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm showing up to work, and I don't know if I just left. I'm in bad mental condition. And so I'm at that restaurant, and someone had been stealing from them. He's heard my story. So my boss had put up cameras, to catch the thief. And I come in on a Friday, barely, and I come into there, and he calls me into the office, and he puts us, it's a 8-track player, guys. All right, so you weren't. Yeah, this is before you were born. And he puts the 8-track into the cassette player, and he catches me stealing on tape. And I denied it was me. This was at the end. I could not differentiate between the truth and the false. But while I was there, and this is one of the men's, but while I was there, this was my condition. I was a flower child. I'm a 60s child, guys. I wore a headband for like 40 years. And my sponsor made me take it off, and I had this indentation in my forehead. And I swear it was holding my brain cells together, the ones that I had left. So and in that I had flowers in my hair. They were dead, but they were in my hair. I hadn't bathed. Bathing became very hard for me. It just did. I just couldn't get up off that couch, And so he looks right at me and he fires me, but he doesn't call the police, So I get in my car, and my car's in the same condition I am, trashed. It never saw oil, ever. I had retreads. I can change a tire really quick. But I go back to this apartment that the government's taking care of because I'm on disability for, my condition. And I go back to this apartment, and my apartment was trashed too. So I go back into this apartment and I fall asleep. I don't do anything else. I don't drink. I just fell asleep. I came to the next morning and something happened to me. You know, the big book says what seemed at first a flimsy reed turned out to be the loving and powerful hand of God. Now, I didn't know that then, but something happened to me. You know, so I picked up the phone, which wasn't mine. I had spliced it with my neighbors. I have skills. And so I called my best friend's sister who had gotten help somehow. I just still think it's amazing how God puts in me someone to call. You know, God did that, but I didn't know that then either. So I pick up the phone and she goes, Sammie, don't move, I'm coming to get you. It's the first time in 5 years that I let someone in my apartment. For 5 years, it had been since my family had talked to me. Oh, I need to let you know, this is interesting. When I was working at that restaurant that I stole, I got a typed letter from my family. And in that typed letter, they said that they had ripped the sleeve. This is what the Jewish people do. They ripped your sleeve and they killed me off. I was now no longer a member of my family. And it killed me. It killed me. I believe with all my fiber today that God has put a fire in us. He has put something in us. And that fire was flickering out. And so she came over and got me and she took me to treatment. And this is where I'm not saying I'm any different than any of you in here, but my story's a little different than the speakers have been. I was the happiest person in the world in treatment. I was one of those people that you hated. Because, see, I'm going to treatment and something happened to me, like I said. I didn't know it was the hand of God. But I'm in treatment and I'm saying, I don't want to be Sammie anymore. I was sick of me. It wasn't about the alcohol. It was so sick of me. You know, I didn't want to be me anymore. You know, and they said, Sammie, I want you to look to your left and I only want you to look to your right because only one of you are going to make it. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I feel so sorry for you. All of a sudden, I become a good Jew. I'm a chosen one. I'm the chosen, you know. I was never a good Jew, and now I'm a good Jew. But there was something inside me that I knew. I wanted what you had. I went to a treatment center that believed in the power of God, the power of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the power of the fellowship. I'm from a group in Richmond Richmond is strong AA. It always has been. So I'm in treatment and I'm learning the best 6 words that you could ever learn in Alcoholics Anonymous. Trust God, clean house, and help others. If anything, you know, those are the things that's the meat and potatoes of Alcoholics Anonymous. So they told me in treatment that I had to get a sponsor. I didn't know what that was, but boy, do I want to belong to your group. Mm-hmm. And so I went downstairs to the meeting, and I ran up to this woman. I said, would you be my sponsor? And then I ran away. I didn't know I was so afraid of rejection. So she comes up to me, and she hands me her phone number, and she looks me right in the eye. And she goes, I want you to use this. And that woman gave me the keys to the kingdom. I'm telling you, I had her for 32 years. I have to tell you, my sponsor just got dementia. Mm-hmm. And that was really hard, but that's another story. Mm-hmm. So I felt for the first time like someone cared. I get out of treatment, and what happens to me, my sponsor opens up her door, and I get to live with her. You know, I didn't even get a chance to have a dry drunk whatsoever. Are you kidding me? So what I did, and if you're new here, and there's got to be, are people here that's got a year and under? Are there some people there? I got 2 great things to tell y'all. You never have to drink again. You never have to drink. What I did, and I think the most spiritual words that you can say to your sponsor is, okay. It's the most spiritual words. And so that's what I did. I grabbed onto this woman and I did what she did. So now I'm working through the steps, and I'm not going to go through the steps. I'm going to tell you that I was thirsty for the knowledge of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was thirsty. I was like a little kid, and I acted like one too, everybody. I was the biggest, fattest baby ever. I cried all the time. So I'm thirsty for the knowledge. So my sponsor invites me in to live with her, and we sit down, and I'm 30 days sober, and we're going through the big book. She goes, "Are you willing to do what we do here?" And I said, "Okay." But in my heart, I really meant it. Because I wanted to be, listen guys, I wanted to be reborn. Jews don't say that, But I really wanted to be recreated, like this big book says, to be recreated. So, we're going through the steps, and everybody said it's so beautifully here. I'm telling you. This has been powerful. It really has. So what happened to me, and I'll just make it brief, steps 1 and 2 is just a conclusion. There's really no work to be done with steps 1 and 2. You either are or you ain't, And if my sponsor said it perfectly, if you really believe that you're powerless, if you really know that, if you know you're powerless over alcohol, you better get a power. That's how simple it was. And I didn't have one. I didn't have a God at all. So I started on a clean slate, So steps 2 was like, okay. That's all he said was okay. Here's where it comes into this tricky thing. Step 3 is about this God that's inside each one of us. She's telling me it's an inside job. So now I've got to start out with God being right here inside of me. It's not you. It's not out there. It's inside of me, this God. And I'm like, okay. So the God inside of me, and she would do it this way. AA and God is in the center. Okay, so inside of me. Steps 4 through 7 is about me. Is about me clearing away this stuff. 4 through 7, that's the work. Right? So now at the end of step 3, when it says, now I need to go out to do his bidding, now I have to get outside of me. Believe God, myself, and now I've got to go out to the public. It goes out to do his bidding. I've got to go now outside of myself, having relationships with other people. And how do I have to do that? Because I've got to clear away that wreckage of my past. I can tell y'all today, and this is pretty much at the end, but I can sit in any room today, and I'm free. I'm current on my amends, but I wasn't back then. So this is what we're going to talk about. So steps 8 and 9 was a radical change for me. It's a revolutionary change. It's big. I was 3 months sober when I'm on step 8 and 9. 3 months, so I'm still attitude. I still got, screw you, what you did to me. So I am writing down my amends, and steps 8 all about just making the list. That's all it's asking me to do is make the list. I did it when I took inventory. And I'm glad. Like I said, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I didn't know about 8 and 9 when I did 4 and 5, so I had a lot on there. But I had a lot of amends to make. That's why this is such a good talk for me today, because 8 and 9 is big for me. So I made the list, and that list was important because now I had to write my amends. Out. I couldn't just say them. My sponsor had me write each one out. So that's my 8th step. My 9th step was a different story. I call it my Judas step. It was, I didn't want to do it because I had a problem. It was called my ego and pride. I don't want you to be right. More so, I don't want to be wrong. I really had a problem with this. I thought if I made amends to you, that you were going to think you're better than me. I'm telling you, this is what I went in with. And my sponsor didn't really care how I thought or felt. Can you believe that? So now, I got to tell you, now it had been like 6 years since my family has talked to me. Okay? So they wouldn't talk to me. So this is my first really, I thought was one of my first amends. And so they wouldn't talk to me. So my sponsor says, well, then you're going to write letters to them. And I'm like, oh my God, she's just way too deep in this, And the fact of it is I didn't want to do it, But in my head, if you knew my sponsor, you would never question her. Never. And there's nothing in between the net and the ver. Never. And so she said, I want you to write letters. And I went, well, you got to help me because I don't mean a word. See, the big book talks about, and this is very important, it is for me today, that I go with a forgiving spirit, that I go to be helpful. I didn't have a forgiving spirit, but I had to write these letters. So I wrote these letters, and at the mailbox, I wouldn't let go. So I write these letters and making amends for the harms that I had caused. Not my part, guys. I don't have a part in this. I was doing my direct amends. I was doing my exact natures of my wrongs. They don't have a part in it. I had to remove them completely from this. So I send those letters. Do I hear anything back? No. And it killed me all over again. It just broke my heart even more. I was one of those people who was at the meetings. I was crying all the time. Your family still loved you, and I was doing everything, how come? I did prison work for 29 years. But when I first started prison work, there was a woman in there that had killed her father. And her family was still coming to see her. Wow, what? I cried and cried all the time. And you would say, oh, my sister and my mom are coming to visit me. And I'm like, screw you. That can't be, And then one day, it was at the fourth dimension meeting. A woman in the back was saying how her family was coming to see her. And I said, isn't that nice? Where'd that come from? That's not me because I was so angry about family. So I wrote those letters. Did I hear anything back? No. My first amends, guys, was not a happy one. This was hard for me. I don't know what would have happened if they would have said, oh yeah, and all. But see, I really believe if you're really in this, if you really want it, no matter how you think and feel, these are like a domino effect. The steps are a domino effect. I get excited about them. I heard someone say that they wrote their 4th step and how exciting it is today. It truly is, because I want to be free. So that's what this step is all about, some sense of well-being, So I make those amends. That's the first one. The second one I made was to the guy I stole from. Okay, so, I don't belong to a bank because I'm a code 6 from banks. They don't like forged checks and stuff like that. So I couldn't belong to a bank, so I had to do money orders. And so so I started sending money orders to Mike, the owner of the restaurant. And so after 2 years, because I'm going to give you the results of some of this. Now, I'm doing these because I know it's the right thing to do. I'm not doing it to look for anything. Remember, I'm not an ambitious person. So after 2 years, he calls me up and he goes, Sammie, will you work for me again? And I said, you bet. I became a dishwasher at his restaurant. Jews do not become dishwashers. But I became a dishwasher, because my sponsor kept saying, you got to get a job, get a job. And she goes, don't get a career, get a job. And so I'm a dishwasher at his restaurant. And 11 years later, I owned that restaurant. And like I told you, it's not because I'm so great. It's because I put one foot in front of me. I suit up and show up. And God's going to take care of you, you know. So that was an amends. My sponsor really believed in this God thing, you know. And like I said, I didn't have one at all. It was a clean slate. But she told me that I had to go in my bedroom, in her house. I used to slam her doors, too, because I'm a big brat. And she would say, Sammie, I want you to go into the bedroom and I want you to talk to God like I'm talking to you now. And I said, okay. But I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I ever done. But what that did, because I said okay and did it anyhow, is it started this relationship with God. You know, just to let y'all know, Jews don't use the word God. They don't say it out loud. They don't even write it. They write G-D. So when I got here, God, the word was stuck right here. Have you ever had anything stuck here that was painful? You know what I'm talking about. So I was going, you know. But I started saying this word God, and I started getting this relationship, however small or inadequate it may seem. You know, it wasn't like hers. How many times do we hear, you know, it's like a mustard seed? And a mustard seed is the smallest seed, you know, but it grows the largest tree. So I came in as a mustard seed, you know. So, all right, so I'm making these amends. And when I was working at that restaurant that I got caught stealing, there was a guy there that I fired for stealing when I stole it myself. That's not good. That doesn't look good on a resume, you know what I mean? So I remember I was 3 months sober, and that was high on my amends list. And I wrote it out. You know, I talked to her about it because I never went to an amends without talking to her. And she goes, you know, I need to make those amends. So I made the appointment with him, and scared. But I knew I had to set that right. So she goes, go with your head up because you're a child of God. You don't have to look on the ground anymore. So I go to him and I make the amends to him, and he forgave me. He forgave me. So here I am, having the worst amends. My family won't talk to me. I'm doing the worst thing in the world, and I go to him with you, with God. I'm in prayer, go to him, and he forgave me. That was big for me. You know, that carried me, that someone could forgive. How do you forgive? You know, I had nothing but hate in my heart. My heart was, you know, had cement. You know, I was teasing someone the other day when she said she didn't have any, you know, forgiveness with this person. I went, God, that Gorilla Glue is really good, because sometimes it gets stuck in there that it can't come out. So I made amends to him. He forgave me. Years later, when I owned that restaurant, he came in every day. He was like a good friend. You know, how powerful is that? You know, I don't even know that these things are going to happen. Okay, so, here's another one. I think I'm clever sometimes. When I was out there, you know, my creditors were always calling me. And one time I told them, and I know a lot of people won't understand this, but some of you will. I told one of my creditors that I was one of those Iranian hostages that just came back. I think they did the same thing, you know. So I got sober. I owed a lot of money. Okay, so I owed a lot of money. And so my sponsor made me write the list. The big book says you make the best arrangement that you can. She really believed in this. So I made the list of all the creditors and friends, you know, that I owed money to. I had to look up their phone numbers and call them to see how much I owed. And then, you know, and we go from there. You know, the big book says, you know, let them know I was slow to pay. I'm talking about corporations here today, 1939, it was Joe down at the bar, But, today, but I called them and I said, I want to arrange the best that I can do. And all of them but one said, okay. But so I got to this is what I did. This is my experience. My sponsor had me get a ledger book and I wrote who I owed, how much. She said, I want you to pay. Now, I didn't make much money at the beginning, so I'm going to send them $25 each. Because she says, if you give them all your money, you're going to be like Peter and Paul. You're going to steal from Paul to pay Peter. She knew me well. So I had to leave money for me, So it took me 7 years to pay off all my creditors. But it happened. If I would have known it was going to have been 7 years, I wouldn't have done it. I want an event. I do not want a journey, True that, right? Okay, so then my mom passed away 2012, but I got my relationship back with her. My sponsor made me write a letter to her like once a month, and she wasn't talking to me either. So it had been years, and so I started writing a letter to my mom, and my sponsor made me say at the end, God bless. I'm like, I can't do that. She's going to think I'm a Jesus lover, You know how our thinking is. So I put God bless on it. And so my mom, after I think it was a year, she wrote me back and she goes, Sammie, I'm just so glad that you're doing well. But basically, she couldn't see me, But then, a year later, I got to get together with my mom. And now it's a funny story, but it wasn't funny then. My mom was willing to meet with me. And so she was in Washington, D.C., and I was in Richmond. And so she said I could come see her, but I had to come alone. She had friends with her, but I had this attitude, obviously. And so I went to my friends and I said, I've got my car that I was driving, it was a $200 car. It was a Volare, if anybody remembers that. It didn't have a grill and it didn't have heat, and I had AA stickers all over it too, because I'm such a groupie. Okay, so I went to my friends and I said, I need to borrow someone's Mercedes. And my sponsor says, no, you're going to drive what you got. And I'm like, no. I'm Jewish. I got to have a Mercedes. I want my mom to think I'm better than anything. I want to show my mom. And she goes, no, you're going to go the way you are. And so I did. But see, I don't understand that. I don't get it. But I'm suiting up and showing up, So I go meet my mother and all went well. She didn't say anything about my car and anything. It went well. And so I started my relationship with my mom. But this story is important down the road for me about the car. Okay, so I made amends to my mom. So now I am trying to, I'm going to call her every Sunday because that's my amends to my mom. And my sponsor said, you can't talk about yourself. You need to ask her about her. I don't understand all these, but I'm doing it. Because down the road, y'all, I'm telling you, my life changed. Okay, so now I have to I need to make financial amends to my mom. I can never repay what I stole from my family. Never. But what I did is she told me to take 10 envelopes, 12, address them, put a stamp on it to my mom, and send her money once a month. And it was only $25 a month. But, we come into this, how many times do you hear this when we come into the rooms? I've got so low self-esteem. My self-esteem is so low, and my sponsor, well, do something esteeming. Do something. But let me tell you what that did for me. It gave me self-esteem. It gave me self-confidence. I didn't know those things. I didn't know those things were going to happen to me, but I had a little bit more of a skip in my walk, I was kind of like a little bit happier, and like, wow, just like what that woman said, wow, how does that happen? I'm telling y'all how this happens, and so I'm making amends left and right because I'm doing a lot of harm in recovery. I was a gossiper. I brought me in it. I need to gossip about you to feel better. I have self-righteous anger. People annoy the crap out of me, and I acted on all those things. But let me tell you the gift of all that. People loved me enough to keep coming back. I would have a resentment. I was a resentment queen. And I didn't stop because I got sober. I had to hit a wall. I did. Everything. Have you ever gone to a meeting? This is a perfect example of spiritual experience, or being awakened. Have you ever gone to a meeting and went, God darn, did you hear what they said? That was so good. Yeah, what did they say? I don't know. But I really feel good, That's what we do here, I'm telling y'all, I had to make amends on, I've had to make amends on my amends. Because early, okay, I'm going to tell y'all. I was making amends because I got caught gossiping to this couple. This couple annoyed me, so I talked about them. I didn't like what they were doing because I have opinions and I think I know what other people should be doing. So I get caught gossiping about them and what I said to them. So I made the appointment to see them both. And I sat down and, said my wrongs, how selfish and self-centered and, that I am. And so they looked at me and said, yeah, you are. You were pretty that way. I went, screw you. I didn't like their response to me. I had to do it all over again with a clean slate. And I love it how the big book says for that forgiving spirit and everything. And so what's happened to me now, I want to talk about the now. I made a lot of amends, because as he mentioned today, how free do you want to be? I now know that my heart is open today. It was closed for a long time. These things that have happened to me have enlarged my heart. So now that I have this, awakening, through you people, sometimes when I step on someone's toes, I feel it immediately. I can't sweep it under the rug because I'm going to take it to bed with me. I'm going to put it in a little box. I may put a bow on it, but it's there. It's like, how many pebbles do you want to get out of your shoe? It's not the big boulders that is in our way. It's those little irritants in our shoes, And see, today, like I said, that I am free. Forgiveness has been one of the biggest things for me. My family didn't talk to me. I went to my mom's, because I got invited to my mom's 90th birthday party. I hadn't seen my family. I was 18 years sober. I hadn't seen my family in 25 years. 25 years. So that's why I say you're my family. I call them my starter set. But see, I go down there and I take my husband and I take you people and I take God, and I walk into that room just like this room. That's how many people were there. I have nieces and nephews that I've never met. Did anybody talk to me? No, not at all. And instead of killing my heart this time, because see, I've already got God, I've got a foundation. I walked in there and they could see that I'm good, I'm okay. But when I walked out of there, for the first time in my life, I felt like I was enough. That was big for me. And for the first time in my life, I felt like what I have is enough. That car I drove was enough. You know, I don't have to show off anything today. I can be me, the best me. My sponsor didn't want me to be her. She wanted me to be the best Sammie that Sammie could be. The one that I can walk hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. You know, I can't walk hand in hand unless I do this work. And we've heard all the people talk about it. You know, these amends that I have made in my life, I think one of the most important ones, and that's what I wanted to end with, without crying. I lost my husband around 2 years ago. And after he died, for some reason, I couldn't pray. I don't know what happened. And it dawned on me immediately, guys, that I knew this was the footprints, that God was carrying me. You know, how did I know that so quickly? Because God's been in me. I'm working from the inside out now. Deep down inside every man, woman, and child is that fundamental idea of God. Every time I said I ain't got it to my sponsor, she said, you've got it. You just got to tap into it because it's there. And so I'm like, I should have been. I wish I was a better wife. You know, I'm going through some things that I had never thought I would ever go through. Like I was feeling, you know, just terrible things like this should have been stuff. I should have been. So I'm working because I work with women a lot. I was working with a woman, and I doubled up, man, on my meetings after my husband died. And I was working with this woman, and we were doing the Little Red Book. And we were on step 9, and it said, making amends to the departed. I was like, that's it. It's speaking to me. What I did that night, I got a book and a pencil, and I got in bed, and I wrote my husband a 6-page letter, you know. And the next day it was gone. All that shoulda, coulda. It separated. For some reason, it separated, and I realized that I was a good wife. I may not have been the best caretaker, but I wasn't a wife for a while. I was a caretaker. You know, God shows up. He just does. You know, God has done for me what I could never do for myself. How do I explain that to somebody? How do I go to work and say, oh my God, I just had an awakening. It was like a grenade. That's how big it was. Because what happens to us, and it happens to every single one of us, because every single one of you have the power today. You have the power to help somebody else. If you're sitting here 1 minute, if you're sitting here for 100 years, every one of us has been given that power to help God's kids. Everything that is gone in my life, my family, they're gone. Everything in my life that has been gone has been the worst thing, as it says in the big book, has turned out to be my greatest gift that I can help someone else. Ain't God grand? So I'm going to end with this. This is the way my husband ended his. There was a guy named Saul in the Bible, big one. Saul was not a nice guy, you know. He was a murderer. In fact, he held the coats and watched the people get stoned. And so on his way to Damascus, God knocked him off his horse, you know. And he had a conversion. He had a transformation. God changed him in from Saul to Paul. And he loved God. Oh, Paul loved God. Paul was an intelligent man. And God loved Paul. But Paul had this problem. He had a thorn in his side. Doesn't tell you what the thorn is. But he had a thorn in his side. And he asked God, not once, not twice, but 3 times, please remove this thorn. And each time, God said, my grace is sufficient to pull you through. I may be an alcoholic, but God's grace has been sufficient to pull me through. Thank you all so much.